Well, OBS Streamlabs did it to me again. It wiped out all of my settings. It's as if I'd open up a brand new install. And I'm not the only one that it does this to. A lot of people complain. And yes, I went looking in my music scene collection. The old scenes aren't there. It's gone. And so it's got me drinking a little bit tonight. I was so mad. By the way, this whiskey is called Koval, Koval. It's oat whiskey. That's the one that you want. It's outstanding, smooth, and not terribly expensive. I think for about a half liter was like $50, which is, pricey, but I could afford that. I'm not paying $1,800 for a bottle of whiskey. At any rate, I thought I would go ahead and put together a top 10 list for you. In this case, it's the top 10 myths surrounding the Kenosha shootings. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
All right, the top 10 myths surrounding the Kenosha shootings. You know what number one is. What is the number one myth surrounding Kyle Rittenhouse? There's no debate on this. Number one, Kyle carried his gun across state lines. False. Never happened. He stored the gun in Wisconsin. He never had the gun in Illinois. So he never had to carry the gun across state lines. Yet after a year, people still say this crap. When someone tells you that he carried the gun across state lines, just block him. There's no point in arguing. The person is so bone dead ignorant that nothing's going to get through that thick skull. Okay, myth number 2. Kyle's mom drove him to the protest. And of course, you get the imagery, right? Here's Kyle sitting in the car with his rifle and his mom driving along. And they pull up to the protest and he gets out and she says, now, do shoot well there, son. Oh, I will, Mom. And so he closes the door and he walks off to the protest while she drives off. Are you kidding me? But the people still believe this crap. You still hear people saying this. So, false. Kyle's mom did not drive him to the protest. She didn't even know he was at the protest. She drove him up the day before. He was already in Kenosha when the protest began, and so he went to the protest. She didn't even know about it. All right, what about myth number 3? Now, technically, is this a myth? We'll talk about it a little bit. But here we go. Myth number 3. Kyle carried a gun illegally during that night. Now, why is this a myth? Isn't it true? Well, we don't know. The judge hasn't decided on this yet. The judge very well might come in and say, no, his carrying of the rifle was perfectly legal. And I have a feeling the judge will. Yeah, I think it's about a 70% chance. Whatever the case, the reason why this is a myth is because people state it as a fact. While it may be proven to be true later, depending on what the judge and, of course, the appeals court says, you cannot state that Kyle carried his gun illegally that night because it has not yet been determined. And, in fact, I think that ultimately the courts will decide that he was in legal possession of the rifle. And that brings us to myth number 4. Kyle's defense team claims that Kyle was hunting that night. No, you morons. Totally false. The defense is not making that claim at all. That claim comes from a false headline by NBC News who got it all wrong. The defense is claiming that Kyle was not hunting that night, and therefore the hunting certificate was not required which allowed him to carry the rifle. It's convoluted. Yes, it's a little bit difficult to understand, but the defense never claimed that Kyle was hunting that night. Myth number 5. If you commit a crime, you cannot claim self-defense. False. People who say that are misunderstanding Wisconsin statutes. The statutes never said that. It is true that if you're committing a crime, you might forfeit your right to self-defense, depending on the nature of the crime. If you burglarize a home, for example, and the person catches you, you might not be able to claim self-defense if you have to shoot him, because guess what? You were committing a crime that had a very strong nexus to the actual shooting. But it's ludicrous to think that if you're committing a crime that you automatically give up your right to self-defense. That's not what the law says, and it defies logic anyway. According to that logic, the protesters that were there that night could not defend themselves if somebody attacked them because they're breaking curfew. And you put it that way, everybody goes, oh, well, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be fair for, to take away their right to self-defense. Well, why? They're breaking the law, right? I thought the rule was that if you commit a crime, you lose your right to self-defense. Maybe that's not quite what it says, is it? Myth number 6. Kyle provoked people with his rifle. Or another way of saying it, Kyle brandished his rifle. This is often uttered by people who don't understand what the word brandish means. Walking around carrying a rifle is not brandishing. I mean, it's perfectly legal. You can walk around Wisconsin with a rifle right out in the open, and the fact that people can see the rifle and may be intimidated by it does not make it brandishing. And if you want to go with the provocation angle, there's no evidence whatsoever that Kyle provoked people with his rifle. One person made a claim of it, so it's a myth to state it as fact. We have one witness who made a claim, and by the way, a person standing right next to him said that wasn't Kyle. So it's still not determined whether Kyle ever provoked anybody with the rifle that night, but it's a myth to claim that he did, because you cannot make that as a statement of fact. It's not been proven, and it very well may not be. We have over an hour of footage of Kyle walking around. At no point does he point his rifle at anyone. Well, until he's shooting them because they're attacking him. So until the evidence comes out that shows that he did, this is a myth. Myth number 7. Kyle is a member of a white supremacist group. There is no evidence to support the claim that Kyle is a white supremacist. None. They scoured his social media. Even Thomas Binger, the prosecutor, admitted they could not find any evidence whatsoever that he was a member of any white supremacist group or that he expressed any white supremacist leanings. Now think about it. He's a 17-year-old kid. You know how irresponsible they are on social media? They say everything. If he was a white supremacist and a member of one of these groups like the Proud Boys or the Boogaloo Boys, he'd be talking about it incessantly. There's no mention of it at all. And I will say this. It's impossible for a 17-year-old kid to keep that kind of thing under wraps. Then why would he keep it under wraps? After all, he doesn't know that he's going to be facing trial in the future. So he's going to go blabbing away about all of his white supremacy opinions and stuff like that. But it didn't happen. There's just no evidence of it. Now you might think, well, what about the Proud Boys deal that, they're in Pudgy's Tavern? And what about the meeting in Miami? There's no evidence to support the fact that Kyle even knew who those guys were. There is certainly no evidence to suggest that he was ever affiliated with any of these groups during the Kenosha shootings. And again, it's impossible to believe that he, a 17-year-old kid, would have those kind of leanings, getting on social media and not espousing any of them. Ridiculous. Number 8, Kyle Rittenhouse shot Joseph Rosenbaum because all Joseph Rosenbaum did was throw a plastic bag at him. Oh my gosh, even the judge got kind of upset about this. I've been hearing about this plastic bag. What about it? All right. everybody knows that if you take a plastic bag and you try to throw it, you're not going to be able to get it to go more than 2 feet away from you. The judge even said that. And Thomas Bigener, the prosecutor, even admitted there must be something inside the bag. Nobody knows what was in the bag. It was never recovered. But it wasn't empty. We know that. But whatever the case, the plastic bag probably played no role in the shooting. We're not sure that Kyle ever even saw it. The defense's angle is not about the plastic bag. It's about the fact that Joseph Rosenbaum tried to take his rifle from him, and there was also a gunshot that went off. Kyle had to have heard it. So, yeah, plastic bag, forget it. Myth number 9. If Kyle hadn't carried that rifle, none of this would have happened. Well, you don't know that. There's no evidence to suggest that Joseph Rosenbaum attacked Kyle because of the rifle. If Kyle had been walking around unarmed, Joseph Rosenbaum still might have attacked him. And because Kyle wouldn't have had the rifle, Joseph Rosenbaum could have brained him pretty good. Joseph Rosenbaum is a little tougher than Kyle. Well, he's a lot tougher. Yeah, he's smaller, but he's been in prison. He's been in numerous fights. And Kyle, well, we know it won, and frankly, I'm sorry, but he doesn't come off as a real fighter there. But whatever the case, there's no evidence to suggest that the attacks were about the rifle. Now, if you can prove that Kyle provoked the fight with Joseph Rosenbaum by pointing the rifle at him, okay. But you cannot claim that if Kyle hadn't been armed, he wouldn't have been attacked. You don't know that. So finally, number 10, Kyle was there that night because he wanted to hurt people. Really? Based on what? We have plenty of footage of him. At no time does he say anything or do anything that indicates that he wants to hurt anyone. We know that he tried at least to help people medically. Whether he was successful or not is not known, but certainly he put out some effort. He went out looking for people to help that night, and he was protecting property. He was interviewed, he was followed, but nothing indicates that he was out there to hurt anyone. And he had plenty of opportunities to as well. He crossed plenty of paths there that night with people he could have shot or he could have at least provoked. He decided not to do so. For example, we know he tried to get past the police barricade so that he could go back to the garage and probably go home. Why would he do that if he was really out there to hurt people that night? He hadn't hurt anyone up until that point. And we have a couple of instances where people tried to provoke him into an argument and he avoided it. Mr. Yellow Pants, for example, tried to get him into an argument and Kyle would have none of it. He simply walked away from him. And when he was trying to get past the police barricade, one of the protesters tried to get into an argument about him, basically saying something like, "You don't belong here, get out of here," or whatever. Kyle just walked away. So if you think that he was out there to hurt people that night, show us the evidence. Did he say anything on social media? No. Did he say anything to the police? No. Did he say anything on camera? No. Did he do anything that night that looks like he was out to hurt anyone? No. So it's a myth. Until you can come up with something to counteract it, this one goes into the garbage heap. All right, I'm going to take my last sips of my Koval oat whiskey. Got to get the oat whiskey. Yeah, I've been drinking, by the way, during the edits. What do you think? Did I miss something? Was there a myth out there that I skipped over that you think is more important? Well, write it in the comments below. And by the way, I have a dumb argument series that if you go, it's a playlist that covers a lot of ground here. I have like 63 or so dumb arguments made by people about the Kyle Rittenhouse shootings, and you'll recognize quite a few of them. So if this kind of interests you, go to my dumb argument series and have some fun. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.